Hello everyone. Now today we'll discuss about the verbal and non-verbal communications case studies, or we can say short case studies. And first we'll be talking about what are the key differences between these two forms of communication, verbal and non-verbal. So let's start our session. So let's talk about what are the key differences between verbal and non-verbal communication. This- First, we'll see what are the different modes of expression based on both verbal and non-verbal. So we'll be talking about modes of expression in verbal form is relies on spoken on or written language. Obviously, as the verbal communication is based on spoken or written communication, so it totally relies on speaking of words or writing mails or letters, whichever format is using. Next comes the non-verbal communication, which relies totally upon body language, facial expressions, gestures, and other physical behavior. Right. The next key difference is conscious and subconscious. In verbal, often conscious and deliberate, involving careful choice of words and structure, because we are doing the formal form of communication, we are communicating in a professional manner. So we have to take much care of the words which we are using, or what sort of sentences or words we are using, right? We have to keep a close check over it. The next is non-verbal. Non-verbal can be both conscious, that is deliberate gestures, and subconscious, automatic facial expressions. So it can include both the things, the deliberate gestures also and the automatic facial expression as well. Moving on to the next key difference. The next key difference is clarity and ambiguity. When we talk about clarity and ambiguity, here clarity means that everything should be clear and transparent, and ambiguity here means that nothing should be hidden. There should be no confusion in the information. So verbal communication here says that the difference is that verbal can be clear and explicit, reducing the ambiguity as everything is very much precise. And when we talk about non-verbal, it can be ambiguous and open to interpretations, relying on context for full understanding, right? So there might be the problem of clarity and ambiguity in non-verbal communication. Coming to the other key difference, the other key difference function says that in verbal, primarily used to convey specific information, facts, and ideas. Non-verbal says often used to express emotions, attitudes, and relational messages. Right. Like non-verbal is mostly done in informal groups. That informal groups can be in organizations also, because employees who are closely related, they form a social groups, and sometimes it is informal. So the informal communication can take place anywhere. It can take place at home, at schools, between social groups, in offices, anywhere. Right. So in that case, a non-verbal communication can express emotions, attitudes, and relational messages. The next key difference is dependence on language. Dependence on language means that verbal communication is totally totally depend on the languages, the sentences, or the words, because we are doing it in a mostly, when we talk about an official communication, that we do it in a documentation form, right? So for that we need to have a close shade of words. There should be a proper selection of words and sentences. So that is totally dependent on language, at which language we are using. Either we using Hindi or English, or which primary language is used in that particular state, country, or city, right? Next is non-verbal. In non-verbal, it is according to some universal constant, or we can say according to universal extent, the certain gestures and expressions recognized across cultures, although interpretation may vary. Right? Interpretation can be different, but the gestures, the expressions might be same. Right? Let's see. We'll talk about the next key difference in feedback. When we talk about feedback, in verbal, immediate and clear feedback is possible through direct responses. When we talk about feedback, so in verbal communication, immediate and direct clear feedback is possible through direct responses, but in non-verbal, it can be subtle and indirect, such as nodding or smiling. Every time you not possible, it's not possible for everyone to give quick response. Instead of saying or speaking something, they might nod their head or they may give a smile. So that is the way of communicating in a gestural form or by giving the facial expressions, right? So coming to the conclusion, I would like to mention that both verbal and non-verbal communication are mandatory for a person. So we must know and must learn how to convey messages and building relationships using both of them. For effective communication, it requires combination of both. With verbal communication providing clarity and non-verbal communication adding emotional depth and nuance. Right. So, as it explains the differences between both the types of communication, the verbal and the non-verbal. So I hope it's very much clear that in verbal there are three forms: the oral communication, the written communication, and the audiovisual communication. But when we talk about non-verbal, it comes to the facial expressions, the body language, the gestures, and the touch and the proxemics, right? All these things comes under the non-verbal communication. So now we'll be talking about the case studies based on both the types of communication. First, we'll talk about the case study based on this verbal communication. And then later on, we'll be discussing about the case study that is based on totally non-verbal form of communication. Moving to the next slide. Yes. So this case study, or we can say this is the short caselet, we are talking of the impact of verbal communication in a remote team project. In a remote team project here means that there is a company who is working at different locations and team working remotely from different parts of the world by sitting at their own convenient locations, right? So there is this case study tells that there will be the part of verbal communication. As they are sitting at different locations, so everything might be going on mail, phone call, or it might be going on video conferencing as well, right? So just moving ahead to the background of the case then. Tech Innovators Inc. is the name of the company. The Tech Innovators Inc. is a software development company, has a diverse team working remotely from different parts of the world. The team is tasked with developing a new project management tool. The team members are from the United States of America, India, Germany, and Brazil, bringing varied communication styles and cultural backgrounds. So here, what this case study is saying that Tech Innovators Inc. is a software development company, and it has a diverse team members as people are working from the different parts of the world. So the team members are from the United States, also from India, also from Germany, and few are from Brazil. So they might be having as the people are from diverse backgrounds, so they might be having a diverse communication style and cultural backgrounds. Right. So we'll be discussing more about it. So what is the entire scenario? During the project, several verbal communication challenges arise, leading to misunderstanding and delays. Here are some key observations. So the scenario was that the entire project was based on the verbal communication, and it was the challenge for them to manage diverse backgrounds, people from different locations. So that there can be less conflicts, and if there is a conflict, we can try to resolve them, right? So let's see what were the problems. So here are some key observations. Number one is direct versus indirect communication. The first one is American and German team members. They prefer direct and explicit communication, expressing opinions and feedback openly. That means American people and German people, they both prefer direct and explicit communication where the member must express opinions and feedback openly, right, without any hesitation. Now, the second was Indian and Brazilian team members. They tend to use more indirect communication, especially when delivering a negative feedback. Like when the Indians and Brazilian team members were giving their feedback, they were not very open to negative feedback. So they were communicating it in an indirect way to avoid confrontation and maintain harmony. So they thought that they should not feel I think they were thinking that they should not feel low, and they should not take it in a destructive way. So they were feeling they were hesitating to share the negative feedback. So in that scenario, they tried to say it in more indirect way as compared to saying it openly, so that the group harmony is maintained. Coming to the next scenario, there was a language barrier. Obviously, the people are there from the diverse backgrounds, so there might be a language barrier. The non-native English speaker were there. Non-native English speakers were there. There's some team members, particularly from Brazil and Germany, they struggle with idiomatic expressions and slang used by native English speakers. So they were not used to it. They were not very used to the idioms and the slangs. So they struggle to understand what things have been said to them, right? So some team members particularly struggle to understand those idioms and slangs due to the language barriers of their geographical location, right? The other comes is the accent and pronunciation. When we talk about accent and pronunciation, it shows the differences in uh, pronunciation of the words, the dialects, right? So sometimes it leads to misunderstanding, and most of the time it requires clarification. Every time, like people were not able to understand their pronunciation. So every time what happened was they were confused and they have to give the clarification, right? Okay. The next is meeting participation. When we talk about meeting participation, it was American team members. In American team members, what they were dominant in meetings. They often take lead in discussions and decision making. So this was the attitude of American team members towards the meetings. They try to dominate other people in meeting by interacting into the discussions and decision making. So that was their attitude towards the meeting participation. The next, Indian team members, they were more reserved. Indian team members were more reserved, and sometimes they hesitate to interrupt or to voice disagreements in group meetings. Right? What happened is, as American, it is already discussed earlier that American people were very open towards the feedback, and Indians were very like they used to hesitate to provide negative feedback so as to maintain harmony of the team. And here what happened in the meeting, that in meeting the American team members they started to dominate and interrupt in discussions and in decision making. But Indian team members were more reserved at that particular point of time because they don't want to uh, create any dispute in the meetings, or they don't want to ruin the harmony of the team. So they try to stop communicating their feelings. So they were hesitant to interrupt or voice disagreement in group settings. So this is the difference in meeting participation of both these members. Understanding of deadlines, right? So when we talk about German team members, they view deadlines as fixed and non-negotiable. For German team members, the deadlines were fixed. Like they don't negotiate on deadlines. If the deadlines is fixed, they will do the work before deadline. They'll submit it before deadline, right? But Brazilian team members were more flexible with the deadlines, seeing them as guidelines rather than strict rules. They thought that, oh, it's just a guideline, we just have to follow it. It will be extended, or it can be extended. So they think that deadlines are made for flexibility. They don't take it as adherence to rule. So that was the approach of Brazilian team members towards deadline as compared to Germany. Let's see what was the impact of this entire behavior and entire background on the project, as they was working on some software project. Let's see what impact they had on that project. On feedback delivery. First is feedback delivery. The direct feedback from American and German team members sometimes comes across as harsh to Indian and Brazilian members, leading to tension. So what this point says, the feedback from American and German team members were very harsh on Indian and Brazilian team members, leading to tension. Why? Because as it is discussed, American and Germans are very open to the negative feedback, and their tendency was to interrupt in meetings and discussions, and that may cause the late decision making or ineffective decision making, right? So that was leading the Indian and Brazilian team members into stress because they were not able to provide the feedbacks just to maintain the harmony. As people are from diversified backgrounds, so they were respecting that culture. But what happened was at the end, they led to the tension. Right. Let's see the next impact. The next impact was language misunderstanding. Again, the misinterpretation of idiomatic phrase and slangs were the problem, as the pronunciation and accents of, or we can say the dialects of the people from German, American backgrounds was different from the other. And so it most of the time it causes errors in the task execution, as people were not clear about the pronunciation. So they used to ask every time, they used to go for the clarification, what has been communicated, what was the exact meaning of that particular thing or that particular pronunciation, right? So that was creating the language misunderstanding between them. Let's see the other impact. Meeting dynamics. Dominance by American team members that results in less participation from others. As the American team members were dominating, so they used to interrupt in between the discussion. So the other members were not able to participate in the meeting because they were so overlooked, because every time American team members used to put their nose in the discussions, and the other people were not able to get the chance to participate in the discussion, and that was causing the perspective to be overlooked. So meeting dynamics, the impact of the project, the impact on the project was this also, that few members were overlooked because their perspective were overlooked. Why? Because the American team members were interrupting in between. The next is deadline management. Here, deadline management means difference in deadline perception. Again, the Germans think that the deadlines were strict, were made to be to adhere, but the Brazilians think the deadlines were made for flexibility, like deadlines can be extended, right? So this is the approach of these two different people from different countries. Let's see what solution we can provide to them in this case, or what solution has been provided to these companies, these people in the organization working over there. The first was to address these issues. Tech Innovators INC implements several strategies to enhance verbal communication within the team. First was cultural sensitivity training, providing training on different communication styles and cultural norms to build awareness and understanding among team members. The other was language support. Language support means offering resources such as language training and translation, tools to help non-native English speakers better understand idiomatic expressions and improve pronunciation. That means what solution the tech innovators provided, that they provided the cultural sensitivity training. So that the different communication styles people must get aware of different cultural norms to build awareness, to understand their team members and communicate accordingly. The other was the language support by offering them resources such as language training modules or translations that helps them to understand the non-native English people must understand the idiomatic phrases and the slangs so as to improve their pronunciation, right? So these things were the help, and these things were provided to them by the tech innovators so that that particular barriers get reduced, right? Let's see what else solution is provided to the impact. So the other thing which was provided is inclusive meeting practices. So in this, what happened was they were establishing guidelines for meetings to ensure equal participation. They were establishing the guidelines for meetings to ensure equal participation, such as using round robin format for discussions and encouraging quieter team members to share their views. So what they happened is to give the equal opportunity to all their employees, to give the equal opportunity or to heard the everyone's perspective in the meeting. They started using the innovative tools like round robin format. In the round robin format, that is a format where we do a discussion in a group. By in that particular discussion, what happens is each and everybody sitting in a group gets the chance, gets the equal chance to speak about his or her own perspective. So what happened is it enhances the it reduces the problem of overlooked perspective of people, and also provide them the opportunity to speak up in the meetings between both American and Germans, right? So, and also the other practice which they inculcate was to persuade Indians and Brazilian team members to share their views who were sitting quieter. The person who was sitting quieter was asked to speak up about the meeting topics which they were discussing, right? So this was the solution to the impact which they faced. Next was clear communication deadlines. Clear communication deadlines here means creating a shared understanding of deadlines and expectation through detailed project plans and regular check-ins. Now here clear communication to a deadline, why it has been taken into consideration? Because the Brazilians thought that the deadlines are just used as a guidelines, but are not adhered to it. So what happened is the tech innovators created a shared an understanding of deadline where they mentioned that the entire project outcomes has to be achieved and have to be accomplished. And for that, they started doing the regular check-ins. They started doing the regular meetings. They started taking the regular follow-ups and did monitoring to control any deviation. If they were deviating from their path, so they were doing the monitoring so to make them so to get them back on the track and to uh, ask them to adhere to the deadline and complete the project accordingly. So these were the resolutions provided to them. Let's see what was the outcome. So we'll discussing the outcome. So the outcome was after implementing these strategies, the strategies which we have discussed just now, the team sees significant improvement in communication and collaboration. So the team, after implementing those strategy, the team got some improvement in their communication between them and collaboration also, between the communication and collaboration both. Right. So the other what was the first outcome? Let's see. The first outcome is enhanced understanding. Team members become more aware of each other's communication preference, leading to more respectful and effective interaction. So as everybody was getting to discuss their perspective, so everybody got the opportunity to know each other, so they become more aware of each other's communication preference and leading to more respectful and effective interactions. The next was reduced misunderstandings. As language barrier was minimized by providing them the communication training, cultural sensitivity training, and providing them the language translator and all. So the team members become more adept at clarifying and confirming information, right? Let's see what else outcome were seen. The balanced participation. Meetings become more inclusive. Yes, it has become more inclusive. Why? Because every team members were getting the opportunity to speak. The members who were overlooked, whose perspective were overlooked, have been asked to share their perspective by using round robin format or by using the discussions of those people who were sitting very much quieter. So these were the strategies which the company used to make their team members more familiar with each other, more close to each other, and to work in a better environment. So these were the strategies made. The last one is aligned expectation. Aligned expectation here means, again, the deadline was common for all, whether they are from Germany, whether they are from America, or they are from India or Brazil. So both were like all the people from the different countries were clear about the deadlines. That deadlines are same for everyone. So this helps them. So this helped the team. This helped the team to stay on track and meet projects milestones. So this was the case of the verbal communication. Let's see what were the key takeaways. So number one is verbal communication is critical in remote and multicultural teams. Verbal communication is critical in remote and multicultural teams. Why? Because you're not there to control it in a in a physical space. You have to do either the online meetings, video conferencing as compared to offline meetings, right? So in offline setup, it is somehow possible to gather a meeting and solve queries and counsel everyone, but in remote setting, it at times creates issues, right? The other is awareness and adaptation to different communication styles, which can prevent misunderstanding. So what happened is they use this strategy to make people aware about different communication styles and respect the culture of different people in the team. So this strategy was owned by the that Innovators Technology Inc. to improve the better communication in professional setup. Support for language barriers were also provided. Verbal communication in remote is difficult, so they provide the language supporters also, they provided the translators, and they also provide the cultural sensitivity training to enhance the team collaboration. The last was to clear and consistent, to provide them the clear and consistent communication of expectation so that the project is completed on time or before deadline, and to make a project a successful story, right? So everything was made, just everything was communication, and everything was used just to make one thing, to accomplish the business goal on the within the stipulated time period, and to make a very good bond between the team members, right? So this was the all about the verbal communication, the caselet of verbal communication. Now further we'll be discussing about the non-verbal case studies.